Record.
Okay, I will call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency, July 22nd, starting with a roll call. Allison DeCenzi, Chair.
Melissa Newts.
Chris Rayleigh.
Julie Evans.
Excellent. Okay, first item on the agenda is approval of May minutes. I had a note to add in section 3A. It did not end with the motion. And it sort of read as though we didn't make a motion because it suggested that I said maybe we should postpone. But we had talked about it and we elected to make a motion to approve, I believe, up to half of the allowable costs. Because we weren't quite sure if more costs would be incurred. So we left it as that. It was seconded by Commissioner Newts, Commissioner Newts, you made a motion to approve. Sarah seconded it. All of us were in favor. So I wanted to add that to the minutes for the future, just because that is the only time we are making a motion on that grant application, which was the 122 North Main. And I have one more note, which was they included Brianne Downey in the roll call, and I'm always glad when Brianne can make it, but I'm not sure if we should include URA consultants in the member roll call. I just didn't want that to get confusing in the future.
We will move them down to the staff line.
Okay.
For this also, it's
Awesome.
changed to approved.
Good to know. Any other notes,
I
suggestions?
have one, and it's
Sure.
not a punctuation error this time, or grammar. Oh, it might be considered grammar, but 3C about the banner application. It says down towards the bottom of the C section, it says Julie asked if they would put these banners up even if the URA didn't fund it. And it's the sentence after that, it didn't make sense to me. Lisa and Allison stated that they don't think LBID does not have the funding. It should be don't think LBID has the funding, or take the don't think out of it. So it's close to my usual correction.
The double negative, I think, ended up being correct, actually, that they did have the funding. They were trying to see if this was a potential partnership that,
Oh.
I don't know if that's how I don't think that's how we thought of it at the last meeting, but
No,
that has
yeah.
been
Yes, okay.
brought to my
So
attention.
Don't say that they think that they have the funding.
We didn't at
say
the
that.
time, so.
Yeah, that's not what we said in the meeting.
So we don't think they have the funding.
That's interesting.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
Double negative, that's what
I mean, in sense, you guys stated that you don't think LBID does not have the funding.
I think that's incorrect. I think we stated we don't think they have the funding. The double negative ended up being correct in real life. They did have the funding. They were just
Okay,
asking if we wanted to help partner.
so fix.
But at the
minutes.
time, we didn't know
So fix minutes.
that.
Yeah,
So back to Julie's suggestion, that is a double negative, which should not be a double negative. I was just stating that for future information, requests like that were not necessarily only because of the funding, it was more of the partnership and
Mhm.
trying to find a way to collaborate.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. So that's in 3C. Anyone else catch anything to add or take away? Okay. I will accept a motion to approve the minutes with the proposed amendments.
Move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
hi.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, I don't have the agenda list in front of me, but I believe that 101 North Main
Mhm.
is next on the agenda.
So the item before the board this afternoon is a facade grant application for 101 North Main Street. The application has been included in the packet for the board, and additionally, the estimates provided for the work were included in there as well. And so the applicants here for any questions the board may have. I am also available for any questions the board may have. And again, the request is for $73,979 for the facade of 101 North Main, total project budget $147,958. And the project is expected to take 3 years to complete, I believe. So possibly.
Oh, two.
So we'll stand for any
Great.
questions the board may have.
I just wanted to clarify, it says 1/3, I know you guys had planned on doing 1/3 of this section, is this whole request going to cover all 3 of those? Yes, right,
Yeah.
okay. And just for more background, so you had the Main Street side, of the building done already in the previous years. Is this gonna be the final stage, or is there?
There's probably
Is
gonna
there a
be,
third phase?
um,
Thinking,
yeah, there's probably gonna be painting.
And window,
Probably.
and possibly upper windows for the residents,
Yeah.
gotcha,
but painting, it needs painting,
sure,
painted.
Some of the areas, you know.
Yeah.
the brick, is that what you're?
No,
No,
Okay.
doors and trim.
Okay, I was gonna say.
No, don't even go there
Okay.
after that paint removal. We will not paint.
Yeah.
No. But some of the trim and doors, but that's
Okay,
not in this,
gotcha. Yes, right,
yeah. And the reason for I don't know, there's a lot in there, but Dave's idea for the third and a third and a third is really because the mason has to put up scaffolding for
Mhm.
each section and park a lift. So, and we have businesses. So the
Sure.
thought is if we can, the windows are being etched right now. The awning, we get the pointing, we get the windows in and that, and we move on. And then we don't have to put scaffolding back in front of that business again for this project.
Mhm.
And it's just better for parking and traffic and keeping tenants happy.
And the 26 to 27 timeframe, that's for all 3.
Yeah.
of these phases
Yeah,
of
I
phase
mean,
2.
it might be possible that we do it in 2 years, depending on how this first phase goes, you know, we'll see.
So then the scaffolding could potentially be up for the full amount of time.
No,
No, he'll
No.
take it, like if he stops, it's weather dependent, right? The
Okay.
pointing, he will take it down and put it back up. If he can't get
Okay.
to the next phase right away, we'll
Okay.
store all the scaffolding. We just don't want it sitting up there.
Gotcha.
Right, is that correct?
yes, that's right.
Thanks for clarifying.
So I don't know if you saw, did you see when we did the front, they made a, you know, kind of a catch
I
and
did,
a
yep.
pedestrian walkway.
Yep.
That's what's gonna happen
Yes,
in thirds
gotcha.
on the building every season.
Sure.
Or every section or season, depending
Yeah,
how it
absolutely.
goes.
I had a question and clarification, and based on their requests, it sounds like they want to find out if they can be paid in sections. So that would be probably not exactly 1/3 of this total request, paid out sooner than the final completion, potentially 3 years from now. Is that something that you're able to let us know if it's possible?
Yeah, for a multi-phase project like this, we wouldn't have any problem paying out sectionally. Again, it will have the same requirements, where we have to have the invoices and proof of payment, you know, for that work, but we'd be comfortable with that.
So I think I had calculated what the dollar was for the phases. And the idea was to purchase kind of the permanent materials. So that means like the awnings and the glass and get all of that done the first year. And then the installation for each
Mhm.
phase in the other
And the pointing.
years.
Yeah, so our first
point.
one will be more money than this, hopefully, than the second two, because we'll already have all the awnings and all the windows will be stored at Nevins Glass after their edge. I mean, so the first one's gonna be more.
I think
We'll spend
I
more.
think I calculated the.
Yeah, the first, yeah, you did.
So if the cost of labor were to go up, say in 2 years, they're only, I mean, that, and we're paying in phases, we're only still paying up to the agreed upon amount today potentially, right?
Yes, yeah, you folks will make a motion up to a certain dollar amount, you know, as cost. Hopefully a motion up to a certain dollar amount with costs as determined as allowable by the finance department. And I think the applicant and I had some conversations, the facade guidelines do allow for more than one project per building or for one project per building per fiscal year.
Mhm.
So they could have broken this up into 3 individual projects. They decided to put this in as one project. And so, yes, there's a little bit of financial risk, I guess, introduced, but it is the
For
applicant's
us, yeah,
financial risk.
risk.
Right,
Yes.
right.
We just won't tell them. They'll tell me as to keep that.
And
And we'll try to go, if we can go faster, we will. But we just need to kind of know what's gonna happen. But
Sure.
we'll try to do it quicker, because we'd love to. Just get it done.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
I have a bigger picture question for Mr. Gager. So at the commission level, when there's projects like this downtown that go over several years, the commissioners get a lot of questions or community feedback on access to businesses and parking. Can you talk about, what the management of public space is gonna look like that from the city perspective and how that block might or might not be impacted?
Yeah, projects do have the ability to, use a parking space, get a permit for a parking space for construction projects. I know an earlier phase of work on this building utilized that. We haven't had any direct contact with the contractor regarding this specific phase, but I have had general conversations with the contractor about the use of public parking spaces. And so I would imagine that there is a time where there is a piece of equipment that is parked on the city street. My recollection is the last work occurred largely from like midnight to 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah, because of the, first of all, because we didn't wanna impact the businesses, and it's messy. It was that peel away for the
Mhm.
lead paint. But also it's was very temperature impacted, so if it was too hot or too cold, it couldn't work.
Mhm.
So, but he did have a lift.
And so as part of the permitting phase, we will work with the contractor to make sure they understand the requirements and but we do expect that, yes, a parking space very likely on Calendar Street will be used for the duration of the active work.
I don't know what the timeline looks like. I know in the past, Director Holmes, when there's been big projects, he does some sort of, but that's again, a city project. He'll do some sort of outreach to the community to let them know how long downtown will be impacted. And I think the first phase that happened anywhere, I don't know if it's this building or anywhere else, but whenever parking is impacted for more than a couple days, commissioners start hearing about it. Will there be like a communication plan or anything going out? Will there be a way that it's communicated to the public? Cause 4 years or, 4 summers in a row is gonna we're gonna hear about it at the commission level.
Yeah, we
So I'm
can
just
certainly
wondering-
work with the applicant to
Okay.
help spread the word and publicize it, not only with the adjacent businesses, but in the downtown.
That'd be great.
community.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And Dave, didn't Luke is our stonemason. There were a couple of lag times, and luckily we're friends with the calls. And they let him park the lift, when we were in a more dire situation, when he wasn't using it. But it's really expensive. So
I
we
know.
don't wanna keep it sitting, but I mean, there
Mhm.
was a couple times where Dan and Kathleen let Luke park it. So that they didn't just tie up a space when no work was
That's great.
being done either.
That's
And
great.
did they
Yeah.
park it behind the outfitters building or?
Yeah, or the Murray, cause he was doing some
Oh,
work at the
okay.
Murray too.
Just off the public, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
mean, yeah, and
Thanks.
we'll do anything we can and we'll work as. But
That's great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
you're welcome.
People,
I know,
downtown parking, it's.
we have our tenants, we know, and we don't wanna impact their business, but it's gonna be really nice when it's all done.
It already is nice. I mean, the improvements already are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
You had mentioned, so phase one of phase two, is gonna be from the alleyway to the record shop. What would be the second and then the third?
It's just basically a third of the building,
Okay,
so it's
So it'll be the record,
roughly a third.
it'll probably then be,
be about halfway to that second half of the building, basically.
I have a quick question. Do I have to,
For the records,
for the record, Lisa Garcia, Vice Chair, present for roll call. I have a question that's more for Grant. This mentions that it's a historic restoration. I'm just curious where this fell in the timeline of the Historic Preservation Committee being involved. Or not for review of this. Was this before it was dissolved?
Yeah, we are comfortable to move forward with it as it is. And yes, this application was submitted in June. The legislative selection had completed and the bill had already been passed and had gone into effect.
I just have a small question about, it's on the millwork.com information. There's a note, a handwritten note that says not the right color and more dollars. So it made it sound like it was, what they're charging you was more than what it really is, or?
There was two quotes and one was, it had a better color and it was cheaper.
So
So
that-
that was the quote that we didn't use in the calculation.
but we provided two because we were supposed to.
Okay. Oh, I got it.
We didn't at first and then Jennifer was
Okay,
like, yeah,
got
I
it.
said, okay,
Sorry.
we kicked it out because
Yeah.
it was the wrong color and it was more, but anyway,
Okay.
yeah, okay. Chicken scratch.
I just wanted to clarify on the awnings, Paradise Valley Masonry, who's also doing the patching for me. Will fill the old bracket and or bolt holes prior to installing the new awnings. There's two different numbers there. One says 19,500, the next is 14,970. Is that 14,970 part of the 19,500? Cause it's not listed.
Okay, I can
in your-
explain too. There's, because we have two, we had one for the patching and pointing, which was the 19.
Okay,
And then we asked him for a bid to, and Jennifer had asked me to make sure that he didn't use the same, holes that we were taking out the old awnings. So then he gave us a bid for installing the awnings, filling the holes, and also, he's not doing installing the windows, but that's what the other one was
so
for.
the 19,500,
Oh, that
is the
says, that
fourth-
says awnings installation.
Yes,
Did I miss? Oh, yeah, that's what that is. Oh, what's the 14? He,
the 14 is for the product, for the awning,
okay,
the awning itself.
and then the installing
The
and
install
patching
is
on that is
19,500.
the. difference.
19.5,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
And we had two quotes for that as well. One is the 34 and the other is the 14.
Right.
For the awnings
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, so we chose the 14.
But the total number doesn't include both bids. for
Right,
these. We're just
right.
showing that we did get two where one was
Yes.
good.
any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I do have a question, just based on the, only receiving one quote for a couple of things, and I understand that, like I think it was American Woodworks were the only ones that could
You
do it. I
have
know you
no
guys searched around and searched
You have
around.
no idea.
So I'm fine with that and, Nevins, they came, they put in the work and they did all that. And
No
you guys reached out to other glass companies.
Yes,
Well.
and they're the only ones who would find it.
And I know that Paradise Valley Masonry did the front of the building. I'm just wondering if we need a second quote for the record or anything like that, if anybody else wants to chime in on that.
I guess I would ask Mr. Gager policy wise.
Yeah, so the guidelines to request multiple quotes, however, within the city's procurement guidelines, we do have allowances for, you know, there's a process. We go out and solicit multiple quotes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you can't force a business to put in a quote. And so, at a staff level, we reviewed it. We're comfortable with it as it is submitted. Those are pretty specialty items.
Yeah, the only other person we would have gotten a quote from is retired and he's, this guy used to work for him,
Yeah,
but and getting someone from Bozeman,
no, and I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. I just want to make sure
it's
for
technicality. Yeah, I get it.
technicalities that we
Yeah.
need a second.
Yeah,
I like the Livingston Company giving.
Mm-hmm,
we do too.
same.
Yeah.
That was all the questions that I had.
Awesome. If there's any further discussion from the board? Or would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I'll move to approve the facade grant application for 101 North Main Street and direct staff to work with the applicant through the reimbursement process.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I.
Aye.
Yay.
Thank you for giving all the information up front. Sharing it, yeah.
Thank you for
Did your
working,
homework.
thank you for working with staff too on some of the stuff that's unrelated, but makes it more
Oh my
palatable
gosh,
to the
it's
public.
been
Thank you.
working with the staff and now with you guys, I wish I could clone you. You guys are awesome.
Start with staff, they're the most expensive.
Yes, okay. Gotcha.
Maybe.
Make more gens.
I
save
wish
us
we could
rent.
clone you. Yeah. Yeah, and Jen is just amazing.
Go on the volunteers. too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Well, thank you guys so much. We're really excited.
it's a beautiful
you.
building. Thanks for
Thank you.
investing in
Yeah,
Livingston.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right, we'll let you.
And,
Yeah.
and Bitterroot Records is awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
That did
Yeah.
not influence my vote.
Okay. Make sure that's in the proof.
Yeah.
We'll
it's
get
great.
through past her as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, thanks you guys so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Copy of the agenda. Oh,
Yeah.
just what item are we on?
The
One B, 3B.
Presentation of laws and handbook.
Okay, moving on to item 3B, the presentation of the bylaws and the handbook. City Manager Gager, would you like to give us the background and any pertinent information here?
Certainly the item for the Urban Renewal Agency this morning is the presentation of the bylaws and the handbook. So the Livingston City Commission adopted new bylaws for the URA as part of a larger effort to standardize the bylaws across all of the advisory boards and commissions of the city. And so those bylaws are presented. They don't materially change anything in the function of the agency. There were just, again, kind of some changes that we were making across others. And so your meeting date still stays the same. The number of board members remains the same. And the mission of the agency remains the same. So really not much there. The board and commission handbook really is probably the larger of the two items here before you folks.
Except for you clarified the quorum, I think, right? Didn't you? And
Oh, yeah, so I guess just to be clear, the quorum to start a meeting is 4 members must be present. So it's half plus 1. And so with 6 members, we have to have 4 members present. And if there is the full board, 4 out of 6 are required to move an item forward. But if there is less, say, as we started today with 4 members, it would have taken 3 votes to pass an item before the 5th member showed up. We are still at 3 votes to pass an item with the 5th member here.
Mhm.
The 6th member shows up, we would move to 4 votes to pass an item. So hopefully that provides some clarity there on the form.
That's good.
And then as far as the board and commission handbook, this provides some clarity, I think, to members of advisory boards and commissions about kind of how they fit in with the city, hopefully, and what their role is. But perhaps most importantly, and certainly for this board, that actually does make grants of funding of public funds. The city commission adopted a conflict of interest policy earlier this year, and that conflict of interest policy does apply to all boards and commissions of the city. So I would encourage you all to familiarize yourself with that. It starts on page 38 of the packet. I'm happy to take any questions now. But really, if you have a financial interest, and financial interest is defined in the conflict of interest policy, if you have a financial interest in any item before the board, you are to declare that and then recuse yourself. And recusal includes stepping down from the dais and allowing the meeting to proceed in that regard. There is also a disclosure form. Thank you to the board members who have submitted their disclosure form to the city clerk already. We appreciate it. For those of you that have not, please do see that. It is on page 42 of the packet. And, you know, I think that's a summary. I assume you've all had an opportunity to review the packet and the guidelines, or excuse me, the handbook. I would say, you know, there are some meeting procedures that have been included. They largely do replicate how you folks do business. There's maybe some changes there. Would welcome any questions you have on that or any other part of the handbook. So
There's like two things that I would add to the conflict of interest policy, if you want to clarify, that we spent, I feel like, at length talking about at the commission. One was the appearance of impropriety. So it wasn't strictly a financial interest in the vote. And then the second was the worst of the use of the word shall, we included for the disclosure form. Because commissioners wanted to require people across boards to do the conflict, mostly for legal reasons. Anything related to land use, we have the highest sort of liability as a city government. Is there anything you would add to that? I think those are like the two things that stood out that you didn't mention.
Yes, I think that, thank you. I appreciate you kind of highlighting those. You know, that on page 38 of the handbook, it's Livingston Municipal Code section 2-24. And it really does point to, I guess, the policy that Commissioner Newts noted. And so really I'll point you down to the third paragraph there in that section. Public confidence in government is essential, and the city can help sustain it by establishing and enforcing rules to ensure the impartiality and honesty of officials in all public discussions, decisions, and transactions. And so the purpose of this policy is to ensure that the actions of elected and appointed boards in the city of Livingston really are not called into question, and there is no appearance of impropriety. And so there are certain acts that are enumerated and are prohibited, but really it is kind of the intent of this policy and of the city commission that all boards and how they conduct themselves are free from conflicts. And so even if something is not specifically enumerated, if it appears to create a conflict, we certainly, or you think it might create a conflict, I would encourage you to reach out to me. And then we can have a conversation with the city attorney if necessary. I would really just encourage everybody to err on the side of caution on this one. And that's really what the disclosure form is designed to help accomplish. Because if we know how people are involved and what organizations they're involved with, as things are agendized and brought before you, then we can help identify some of those conflicts beforehand and help you folks work through them.
And that was why we put the word shall in, because we were making it mandatory that the disclosure forms from commissioners as well as all the boards were submitted to the city, like as a requirement to participate on the board. That's if I'm remembering correctly, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I just have a question of clarification about conflict of interest. So I understand that if you have a conflict of interest, you have to recuse yourself from voting. Do you also recuse yourself from the conversation? Okay,
From the entire item.
okay.
I had a, may I, on top of, because I had the same question in the opposite way, which the language sounds like you excuse yourself during the conversation, then you come back for the vote. Is that just to watch the vote, or are you actually voting?
So that's only if if a commissioner's vote is required for a quorum. And so I believe the section that is being referred to, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, exactly. It's on the top of page, I apologize, top paragraph of page 39. In the event of a perceived conflict of interest, officials may rely upon the advice of the city attorney as to whether the official has a conflict of interest pursuant to law. Bless you. It matters, bless you, where a conflict of interest exists, the official shall excuse themselves from the dais and refrain from discussion and vote, except when the official's participation is necessary to obtain a quorum or otherwise enable action. In such a case, the official shall disclose the interest, creating the appearance of impropriety, and comply with disclosure requirements of MCA 2-2-101 et sequitur, prior to performing the official act. And so there is that loophole, right? And that really is because there are 5 of you here today. You know, if 3 of you were connected to a project that was seeking action, that action would not be able to occur, right? In any way, even if the full 6 were here, because we wouldn't have 4 that were free of conflict. This allows business to move forward even when a conflict exists.
That's what happened in May. We had 5 here, 2 removed for conflict, and then the 3 of us voted. And we wondered if that were not a quorum of the whole, we were a quorum of the present members, and so I'm still confused, I guess. as
So
to-
that vote counted.
And that was before the new bylaws. That like outlined how many were in the vote. Does that make sense? I
I
remember.
still
watching
get
that.
confused about quorum present versus quorum overall, especially with 6. I'm just a little still confused.
So there are certain actions that by state law or Livingston Municipal Code require a full vote, or excuse me, a vote of majority of the entire board to move forward. So there are some things that would require 4 of you to vote yes on no matter what.
Mhm.
Those are very, very limited. And in fact, you folks probably would not really get many of those, if any of those. And so at that point, you revert to either a quorum of the members present or a quorum of the members present and able to vote. And so if there were 5 and 2 were unable to vote, then the eligible voters are 3, your quorum becomes 2.
Those things are really rare, I would say, and it's mostly like. Exceptional land use things that require a super majority of voters, and when that happens. The city manager always gets legal advice, and this, in my time on the commission over the years and managers I've worked with, they always get the advice from the attorneys and bring it forward on the record, so we'll never be on the hook, like. Staff will always tell us. And prep, you know what I mean, like prepare us
Right,
for like
make
the
sure you're
rare,
there.
the rare
Mhm.
occurrence, yeah. Yeah. It's so uncommon that the staff that follow land use like know those things really well, I think. I mean,
And again, there are only a few items that are enumerated in either state or municipal code where a quorum of the entire board is necessary, and they are land use issues which should not come before this board.
mhm.
Could you give an example of ex parte communication, like to
Mhm.
disclose at the beginning of point?
Absolutely. So we just had an application that was submitted. And an ex parte communication, for example, would be if a board member was out at just in a private moment outside of a public meeting. or outside of kind of the application receipt process, and had a conversation with an applicant. And was, talking about the project that would come for the board. And so it would be appropriate before that item came up to say, hey, I had a conversation with applicant A, over at Marks In and Out, and we were talking about the project. Just disclose that you did have a conversation with an applicant before acting upon it.
And what the conversation was.
That does not create a conflict of interest. It is just something that is most appropriately disclosed. But I would offer that because myself and the chair are on the URA email list. If somebody's simply submitting their application to the URA email list and you receiving that email application, that is not ex parte communication. That is simply the application submission process.
Okay, the next time they see me out and about and they say, hey, did you get my application? How was it looking? Like that kind of happens. I'm not talking about these people in particular. I'm just saying in general, that's happened over the years.
And so that would be something that you would disclose. A kind of a more meaningful ex parte conversation would be like, hey, you got my application and it's going to make Livingston really the greatest place in the history of the world. And so it's important that you vote for this because it's going to be such an awesome project. And then you might say, hey, I was approached by the applicant. They encouraged me to vote for the project. I informed them that I make my decision in a public sphere, and so I am here, as an open mind to make the decision.
Kind of like along that vein of ex parte, I think the commission, I don't remember where it is in here. But we talked about order of operations. I think it's on page, I'm looking for it starts. 35 of the packet. Under procedures. I believe we even talked about ex parte, didn't we, Mr. Gager? Do you remember? If we could ex parte in this one, or if it was just in the commission.
It may have been just in the commission, but really it would be in on page 35. Oh yeah, no, it is. Yep, it's in A1. The chair shall clearly announce the agenda item to be considered and ask other members for conflicts or ex parte disclosures. So that is the first step in introducing an item.
And so we laid out the steps. Thinking about all the boards that are city boards, so it would make sense for everyone. For all the boards, particularly boards like this that do anything related to land use, and like the consolidated land use board. And maybe the historic preservation committee would be, or commission would be the last one, but. We laid it out like this to make it easy because members of the public move back and forth between our boards and the commission. Just so it's like an easy flow for the chair. To remember all the little tidbits that we have to remember for land use, so hopefully that's helpful. Because we forget sometimes too, and so it's just as much for us as for everyone. I think that was the other update. Because we found our boards were all over the last several years, our boards had done things in different ways, so we're just trying to make it. Especially for all the land use boards, like flow in a way that keeps us legally strong,
I was thinking the next time I need a printout of my
Yeah, it's
my
really
process.
I usually
until
did that when I
memorize
was chair of the commission. I usually had like a thing next to my, so I could remember. It's helpful, actually.
Yeah, I think it would be.
I'd put a post-it note usually.
Any other board members have comments or questions on let's talk about specifically the handbook to start. No. Okay. How about any board members have any comments or questions on the bylaws?
Do have a question on the bylaws, just clarifying, since we are 6 members, which is an even number. What happens if we vote 3-3 on something when we are all present?
The motion does not pass. Nor does it
Okay,
fail.
It needs a
It
vote,
is, it is a motion that neither passes nor fails.
so we just have to keep
Well, it actually it fails because it doesn't pass, so, yes.
So it gets, can you
Does
revote
it
in the same
stay on
meeting?
the Agenda.
Oh, yeah, and the chair could call for additional motions on the item, and then it would be up to board members to craft a motion that they think can get the requisite number of votes to pass.
I have the same question just because the most recent MCA that I've seen says boards must have 3 members minimum and an odd number. And you could have unlimited odd numbers according to the Montana code, but I'm wondering if that code has changed or how this was created in relation to the Montana state code.
I'd be happy to review the information that you have, although I would point out that there are a great many cities in the state of Montana that have 12 city commissioners or 12 city councilors. So I'm happy to look at the MCA citation that you may have. And I'm
Maybe what was,
happy to report back.
it could be old, like what, it was from our binder, so maybe there's something new since then. There's obviously a lot of information on the website and I wasn't quite sure how to navigate all of it to figure out. But it's good to know the process for if there isn't a tie. I was wondering that too. Excellent. Well, are there any, we all have to sign our disclosures, but is there anything to vote on in this section?
No,
Because it's already been decided.
this is just a presentation to you folks.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to 4A. Discussion regarding the establishment of subcommittees.
Thank you. The item before the board is revisiting a conversation that was, I guess, initiated by several board members earlier this spring. And I did just simply want to close the loop with the board and provide the information necessary. And so really I will, I guess, start out by saying that any board does have the ability to create subcommittees. Although, as I will show, under Montana Code annotated, a subcommittee is also subject to open meetings law. And so if the URA were to create a subcommittee, and I'll point you to MCA 2-3203. And start with 1, all meetings of public or governmental bodies, boards, bureaus, commissions, agencies of the state, or any political subdivision of the state, or organizations or agencies supported in whole or in part by public funds or expending public funds, including the Supreme Court, must be open to the public. This board is a board of a political subdivision of the state. Political subdivision being the city of Livingston. This board was created by the Livingston City Commission. And so the meetings of this board certainly fall under these requirements. And I'll point the board to subsection 6, which states any committee or subcommittee appointed by a public body or an association described in subsection 2 for the purpose of conducting business as within the jurisdiction of that agency is subject to the requirements of the section. And so you folks being a public body, a subcommittee appointed by you folks would also be subject to open meetings laws. And so with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions that the board may have.
I think my main question is separate of forming a subcommittee, when is it or is it not appropriate for us to meet outside of a forum, outside of the public?
Well, Montana's constitution is very much in the vein of public participation in meetings is really critical. You know, open meetings and sunshine laws are very strong, not only within the constitution, but also within Montana Code annotated. And so at no time should a quorum of this board meet outside of the public meeting. That would be a public meeting. And so however, so if 2 board members wanted to chat about board business, they could chat about board business. However, if one of those 2 members then went around and started talking to other board members about the same board business, they would be in violation of open meeting laws and having a walking quorum. And so the best practice is not to talk about board business outside of a board meeting. But if you must talk about board business outside of a board meeting, for purposes of a quorum, you should never talk about the same item with more than 2 other board members.
Four, there's 3 others, 4 total is a quorum, right?
Exactly, so a board member could talk about an item with 2 other board members and still be okay. But if they went and talked to a 3rd member, that would meant that they had talked to a quorum of the board about an item.
So if I'll give an example from last year to see whether or not it's appropriate. We had an open meeting to launch the residential rehabilitation guidelines. And Allison and I met separately, maybe once or twice in preparation for the presentation and some other things that we were doing for that. I don't believe we ever spoke to anyone else. We didn't have time to do that in between meetings because it was gonna happen in between them. So is that okay?
A conversation like that is okay, yes, and just, for the record, I have met with the chair and vice chair outside of a meeting, and that type of meeting is acceptable because we were less than a quorum of the board. It would have become not acceptable if one of you folks had gone out and then discussed those items with a 3rd board member, because at the time there were 5 voting board members, and so that would have been.
What is the notice for a public meeting? What would that
48 hours
Okay.
On a regularly scheduled meeting, but in an emergency situation, it can be less than that. But there are not likely to be emergency meetings of the urban renewal. They could be, but
knock on wood?
Can be wild.
I don't wanna complicate, but like there was a part from the new handbook that says members shall not perform work tasks to support the function of their board or commission. And I think that meant outside of meetings, cause this is not necessarily a task, we're just here at a meeting, but so what exactly falls under a work task?
Where are you at on the?
I didn't write down where it was
Oh,
in
sorry.
the
I
handbook.
forgot you didn't.
so that really can come up in a
Actions of
number
boards
of
and commissions.
ways. The city has had situations where
Thank you.
board members have gone out to and I'll use a land use situation that we had where we had a board member who actually went out to a project that had been approved by the board, or the approval of the project had been recommended to the city commission. The city commission approved the project, and a member of an advisory board actually went out to the site of a project and attempted to interact with the project manager and the owner of the project and present themselves as an agent of the city who was there doing some compliance work on the project. That compliance work is not work that has been delegated to the board, so that would be inappropriate. I think that's probably the most germane example. I guess Commissioner Newt, I'd welcome your input. You've
So let's think of like a URA thing that I hope has never existed, but I don't know. So, an example I can imagine from the URA would be like if an applicant was having their application considered by the URA, but they wanted to know if the project guidelines met the requirements of the city or like of historic preservation guidelines, and they asked a URA member, and the URA member was giving feedback on that. Like that would be an example of like, that's not the URA member's job. That would be like certain city staff people as delegated by Mr. Gager are assigned to that work. So that would be like an example that fits the URA, right? Like where the only people that interpret the code are certain city staff, depending on the code and depending who Mr. Gager delegates to interpret that code on behalf of the city. Like it's very bureaucratic in that way. So anything that's related to administrative work, the commission would be, the commission's like very aware and wary because many of us have been there for a while. Like if it falls within the legislative lane, then it's okay for boards. And if it falls within the administrative lane, it's strictly city staff. That's even like, some other, I've been on like a lot of boards at this point, guys. Tree board, parks, land use, health, URA, I think that's all of them I've been on so far. That includes like setting an agenda is like a thing that's developed by, that's an administrative role. That's a thing that a lot of people don't know. Is there anything else you can think of? I'm trying to think of the biggest stuff across boards, like,
Reviewing pay applications, if an applicant were, if an applicant like today were to submit a pay application and a commissioner were to get a hold of it and say, oh, yep, this is approved, finance, cut the check. That would
Yeah.
be not be something that would be a work task. So there's,
if it's like somebody's day job, then it's not the commission or one of the commission's board. That's how I think of it, like if it's somebody's day job in City Hall, right?
and much of the work of this board ought to occur in this room in a public meeting, and the work of the board members, when you folks leave here, your next expected work task is to read a packet when it comes to you.
Right. Like the making the packets, the making of the minutes. The doing the business part of setting up the meeting, taking down the meeting, like all of the like nuts and bolts is like. We pay staff to do that, the commission pays. Staff to do that. Does that make sense?
Just
Like,
to
that was a
to
lot of-
clarify your example, so we know our guidelines because we helped write them, many of them, the 2 new programs. So if we are approached by an applicant, ex parte or whatever the phrasing is, and they ask us if they qualify for the guidelines, we have to say, you have to ask the city
Yes,
manager.
you have to ask staff. So we pass policies at the commission level, but once it's passed, like say the noise ordinance we passed, we made that noise ordinance as a commission. Just like we made zoning regulations as the commission, and once we vote on those and they're made, they're in the hands of Mr. Gager. And now it's his job to carry it out. So we write up, so you're exactly correct, like you set up the program, you set up this is our dream program, and then once that's voted on and it's handed over to staff, staff now interprets that program. And if they have questions about intent, they'll bring it back to the URA and say like, if there's not clarity around the intention, they'll come back. Otherwise, it's in the hands of staff. That's correct.
Okay. I
And,
guess
and
I don't
feel free to jump me
entirely
if you think that I'm
understand.
wrong, but I think like once we pass something at any level, that now it's like, it lives in the administrative branch.
For example, so the emails that I sent out to people letting them know that why am I forgetting all the names of our programs today? The downtown enhancement, thank you. Were available, someone replied back to me and you said that I could reply. Was I not supposed to reply to that? Because I gave them examples of what does or does not qualify for the guidelines.
I think that was a very informal inquiry at that point, and it hadn't matured into an application. And so, yes, if somebody sees you on the street and says, hey, I just bought a building downtown, the bricks are kind of crumbling on the front. You guys do a facade renovation grant program, don't you? You can certainly say, yes,
Mhm.
we do. If you'd like some more information, the guidelines are on the website. You can talk to staff, you can do this, that, and the other. It's not that you can't talk about it, but if somebody says, oh, hey, I've got an application for a grant program. Can you just take a look here and, review it and tell me if everything's good to go? That would
Yeah.
probably be a step too far.
Okay.
But having conversations, letting people know that project or programs exist, that certainly is within your
Yeah.
purview.
Sure.
Like we
okay.
have a noise ordinance, but I don't stand out there with the decibel meter and like write tickets.
No,
But I
it
can
just,
tell
if
people
your
we have a
example
noise ordinance.
seemed
Yeah,
extreme as to what we could or.
I
could
try to
not
give
do.
extreme examples, yes.
Sure.
I was not trying to shut you down. Thank you.
And,
Bringing clarity.
I guess it's important to remember that you folks act as a body and you do so with the room, but you certainly have.
Yeah, we just get a lot of questions. I mean,
That's
people
good.
stop us all the time to ask us, how much money can you give us for the facade grant, for example?
And
I wanna be
explaining
able
the
to know that I can
guidelines
say X
and walking
percent
them
up.
through,
Okay, great.
totally acceptable.
That's good. I'm glad.
So just trying to understand what a work task is. So the example I think about is getting ready for this downtown and that downtown, what people do downtown, and
Mhm.
Lisa did a lot of work to get ready for that and put out flyers.
Mhm.
Those seem like work tasks to me.
That probably is an example of something that would have been best delegated to staff at that time.
Oh, okay, interesting. This is all kind of new thinking to me, so it's trying to get
Yeah.
my mind around it.
It is a big change since previous years. And also staff printed them out, so they were approved but like we were just being the feet on the ground to hang them. Which I think like at some point we might not be able to ask staff to do everything because there's not enough staff and time. And so that's where I'm trying to understand like the boundaries of what's gonna be possible with this new format.
And I don't know if this is new, just to be like clear, I just think our documents weren't. Like, I don't think this is like a new thing, I think this is,
It's a bit new, to
It's
say that the
definitely
only
new to
thing
us.
we're
It might be
expected
new
to
to
do
you.
is
It might be new
to
to
read
you.
a packet once a month is a lot different.
that might be new to, that might be new here in this space, but I mean, from the commission perspective, it's not new. Is what I'm trying to say.
I bet to most boards it's new though. Most boards would say. They haven't been up.
It is to us, certainly.
It was new when Julie and I got introduced to it when we were able to make one of the trainings and all that information was brand new to us, even though we'd been on the board. And that was helpful. And then this is even further, like, I would say limiting to what we do on a regular basis. It's more focused on meetings, which is just a new way, like you said, new way to think about
I think
this
like,
work.
I think like from the commission perspective, since I've been on since 2018 and when I started, things were. Even more different than they are from last meeting to this meeting at the URA. I think the commissioners recognize that. I'm trying to paraphrase and we're all so different, but I think we recognize that like. Because many of us have served across many boards, we've all seen. Sort of like where we can do a better job as a commission to make sure that our boards have more clarity. If you took a look at our bylaws, like before this vote on bylaws, they were all over the place and it was so hard to even understand one board from another. And so the perspective from the commission has always been the same because Montana Code annotated drives so much of this, but it was becoming obvious that what the commissioners knew is not what the board members were taking away. Because we get a lot more training, a lot more resources than board members. So the intent isn't for anybody to feel surprised. The intent is we're trying to bring clarity as a commission to all the boards. Because we realize that like different board members have really different perceptions. I would say the boards that sort of are tended to the most historically in Livingston have been the land use boards and like the zoning commission when they were separate, because those are such like litigious spaces. But our goal is to make it easier for all the boards to be on the same page. So that it's less confusing. The goal isn't to try to make it harder to be on a board. The board is really like, we're trying to make it more equitable and put the work where it belongs and legally safer, to be honest. Because if we have like legislative folks, whether they're on the commission or on the boards doing administrative work, then it puts us in a bind where we'll get sued and lose, which is the thing that happens. I don't think we've lost. It's not significantly. We're doing pretty good there, but it's tricky.
Okay, so just another example and question. I have on my to-do list, which I've said I was gonna do for a while now, to make a one sheet of the downtown enhancement program guidelines, so people have examples of what the projects are that would be approved. Is that now something I take off my to-do list and send to you, Grant, who probably has 9,047 other things on his to-do list?
I certainly do, but I've got approximately 149 staff members that work for me. So that is something that we can get taken care of.
Right?
So just to clarify, if we did 3 subcommittees of 2 people, they wouldn't have to be public meetings.
So the
As
creation
long
of
as no
a,
one goes out.
Don't call it a subcommittee.
yeah, I was gonna say, the creation of a subcommittee, no matter how many people are in it, subjects that group of people to open meetings
Okay,
law.
I see, yes.
Yes.
But then if
So-
we can't do things outside of our meetings, like Sarah and I wanted to make a website, that has to be city staff. So that then
Yes,
there's
I
no-
think a conversation about, a website would be an acceptable thing for 2 members to have. And then, yes, the actual decision to create a website should be made in a public meeting, and then that work delegated to city staff.
So if a finance subcommittee was created with even just 2 people, it would have to be public. Does that have to be recorded with an owl?
And minutes and a
And minutes,
publicized
got it.
agenda.
Which I think we're gonna run into at some point. We can't just create all the subcommittees we want and publicize them because there's not enough time and staff to help with like if that's the case, that's what Commissioner Newts brought up previously, if everything has to be handled by city staff. We need to be conscious of what we're putting onto city staff.
And the only people that actually direct city staff is the manager, and the only person that directs the manager is the commission. So it gets like. What's that?
Like about, yeah.
It's more like, I think it requires a conversation of what does the process look like if the URA wants the manager to direct staff, like, are you asking now the commission to allow the URA to form subcommittees? Do you know what I mean? Cause, I mean, what's your thought on that process wise? Cause I mean, even having committees at subcommittees at the commission level, it's like, you haven't been there for those yet.
No,
but
generally
we've-
speaking, we do not have subcommittees in the city of Livingston for this very reason. And I would point out, you know, in the 2 years and 10 months that I've been the city manager, we really have not at the URA level had more than 2 applications to be considered on any agenda. Typically it's 1 or 0. And so I do think that there is room in the current meetings and on the current agendas to start to address some additional topics beyond applications. That's the will of the board. And so I do think in, you know, board comments or other avenues would be an appropriate time for board members if they wanted something to be agendized for a coming meeting. This would be a good time to talk about that and put that out to the board members. Because you know, I'll point out this meeting started at 5:30 and the first item. Well, sorry, yeah, 4:30, and the first item was completed within 20 minutes. And so I think there is time within the current framework to handle some of the other work that might otherwise be delegated to subcommittees.
Now that it's just conversations.
So the correct avenue if Lisa and Sarah wanted to work on a website would be to not name a subcommittee. The 2 of them talk it out. Have it on the agenda for the meeting coming up. We vote on the proposed website and then hand it over to the city to design and implement that essentially.
So I'm gonna use my same example about a 1-sheet for the downtown enhancement program. I have to put that on the agenda. It has to be approved by everyone, and then you have to tell Grant to make a 1-sheet.
I don't tell Grant anything, I only ask.
Not you, the city.
But like, I know, we can ask him though.
Yeah.
See how that works, I don't know.
Well, so I would say for purposes of this board, you know, the city does staff the urban renewal agency. And so as the board of the urban renewal agency and as your contracted staff, you do have the ability to give us work tasks. Those are most appropriate to come to me and then I will work.
But do you think the same is true for subcommittees?
You know,
I think there's some commissioners that have really strong opinions on
I would
this,
say if
myself
we're looking
excluded.
at creating subcommittees, that's probably a policy conversation that we would have with the city commission, because we don't have subcommittees for any other advisory board or commission.
Why don't,
And that the goal of that really is because the advisory boards and commissions are designed to solicit and provide a forum for public feedback on policy issues. And so taking that down even further seems like it's a little bit of a disservice to the public, I'll say that. It really makes public participation that much more difficult if the urban renewal agency has meetings the 4th Tuesday of a month at 4:30, but the finance subcommittee of the urban renewal agency meets, you know, the 3rd Wednesday at 9:30. It becomes a little bit more difficult. And as I noted, the volume of work for this board is not so great that or has not been so great in the past that additional work could not be accomplished in this meeting.
Like a generalized way to say it might be that like that the boards and the committees are the subcommittees. For certain tasks that happen in the city.
yeah, well, I
Is
don't
that what you're
think we
saying?
need
Okay.
subcommittees anymore, really. I think our intention for subcommittees was to do work tasks in between meetings that
Mhm.
would not have been able to get done otherwise. So I think if it's okay that 2 of us meet to discuss and don't discuss it with anyone else, so it doesn't create a quorum, for Chris's example of me and Sarah discussing the website and then bringing it to the agenda in front of everyone and the public, that's not a subcommittee. It's neither a subcommittee nor is it unethical.
That's correct.
So now I have a question on how things get added to the agenda. Obviously, I know in the past at meetings, we've decided that sounds like something we should vote on in the next meeting, but then other things come up on our agenda that we didn't know about. So if myself or anyone else on this board came upon something that they thought belonged on our agenda for the next month in between meetings, can they pose that to the city manager? Or do we
Yeah,
have to
that would
vote
be-
on it as a group?
That would be the most appropriate way, would be to approach me and say, hey, this item has come up, can we talk about it?
Is there a certain amount of time that you need on that?
The agenda
Just
comes out.
before the agenda comes out?
Friday before the meeting, so, you know, I have tried to make it a practice to meet at least with the chair, you know, a week to 10 days before the meeting to talk about the agenda. And kind of come up with what's on it, so I guess if you folks would keep that in mind, you know, a week to 10 days before the meeting, it'd be great to get me, you know, anything that you might be thinking of, so I can, you know, determine if it's appropriate to agendize. And more often than not, I take the approach that, yes, if something's, you know, within the purview of the board and is a reasonable thing, then it should be agendized and discussed.
So I'd like to follow up on the website. Just basically for the process, the steps to be taken. Every time something needs to be updated, we would have to reach out to city staff. To update the website, please update this to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the city staff, we control the website. So I don't believe any of you have login credentials.
No, I meant, and for example, maybe creating our own website, like we had talked about the buildings, URA has their own website. That they update periodically based on projects completed or status. So if we wanted to do something like that, if we wanted to show progress in how the URA funds are being used in our community. It's basically in the hands of the city staff to update the website and all that.
Yes, and I guess I will say, I do have experience not only with our current website software, but how it can be used to support an urban renewal agency. And I think what's important for you folks to keep in mind is that, yes, a website is good to publicize the past projects of the urban renewal agency, but because of open meetings laws, really one of the primary functions of government websites these days really is to post meeting notices and agendas and minutes and videos and all of that. And so the software that the city uses, there really are a small handful of providers that work in that realm. And I will tell you, the functionality of meeting documents is very smooth and seamless and easy on the current website that we have. I've done it for urban renewal agencies on a WordPress website. It is significantly more difficult because the technology really just frankly isn't there. So if the board is talking about moving to a different website, I would offer that the city's current web platform does allow for microsites that have different URLs, that have different color schemes and looks, and even some different functionality than what we use in the base city website. Microsite for an urban renewal agency that I worked for in the past was about 5,000 to create and about 5,000 a year to host. I'm sure that's gone up, probably $6,000 or $7,000 now for each of those respective numbers. So it certainly is possible to update the website, modernize the website, make it look and feel more like it's just the URA, while still having to share the back end of the city's website and the meeting functionality, which is, like I said, that's really kind of the critical function of the URA's current website. So certainly if it is the will of the URA to have a website with a little bit of a different look and feel from the cities, I know how to accomplish that from a technology standpoint while still preserving the main functionality. Be happy to have that conversation at the
You're
next
saying it
meeting.
wouldn't cost us $10,000, $12,000, because we already pay for it as a city, it could just fit inside there? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And so it can be fairly economical, and while also giving, like I said, an independent identity, because you folks do have, you know, your own logo and so.
So if we wanted to do, would that website be able to handle before and after pictures or something like that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And could have, you know, and I'd point the board to the city's web, and heck, I'll go there myself, I'll just talk about it and show it. So, and we do this in a maybe a little bit more rudimentary fashion here, but just to kind of show you folks what's possible. We do have different project pages for items within the city, and I will say this project page does have the ability to link to a map that can be shown, as the project's homepage, that could have a pin on different locations of URA projects, and then a person could click on a pin and say, okay, this is the Thompson Building project, and have a little blurb here. We could easily have pictures. We could have the, and so we've got some pictures here in this one, and we could easily have the documents for the application and all of that stuff. Again, all tied to a map and, integrated that way.
So I
So
do think it would be nice to get something
Like a map.
like that going.
Better make a motion in your comments to get that on an agenda.
All right,
Uh-huh.
I'll make that motion. Yeah, so for something like that, would we have to put it on the coming agenda?
I guess, as the commissioner said, if the board would like to, I think if somebody, made that comment in their board comments and had some other similar opinion expressed by other board members, that would be on the next agenda.
Okay, with that in mind, are we ready to end our discussion regarding the subcommittee's establishment? Okay, so moving on to 5, public comments. There's no public in the room. Are there any people online from the public that would like to make a comment?
We had one, but I think we lost
We've
it.
lost them. Okay, so I'm closing public comment, opening up to board comments.
I have a question, and it's complicated by what we just talked about in terms of conflict of interest. I'm not even sure I can ask the question, but I live on the alley behind the Wilcoxons that has this incredible project going on to replace the sewer line. And when I went to the meeting, talking with the public works people talking about it, they said, oh, and the URA will be giving, grants to people or, and so I'm just wondering what happened with that, that possibility, and just want to close the loop on it.
Yeah, so that grant program does still exist. It was one that was created several years ago, the last time we did a downtown.
Right,
IP
yeah,
that's helped,
okay.
folks pay for their upgraded service connections.
Uh-huh.
So that program does still exist. And I believe the project team should have been mentioning it to affected property owners. But if that hasn't been made clear to affected property owners, I can redouble the efforts with the public works team.
Oh, okay. I don't think, I have neighbors that want to know,
Mhm.
and,
Yep.
yeah,
Just clarify what grant program that is.
So it is a program that subsidizes or provides partial reimbursement for the cost of new service connections when we do an infrastructure water sewer project that's nearby. And it makes sense while we have the pipes exposed, or while we're putting in new pipes. If somebody has a 100-year-old service line, it makes sense for us to upgrade it at that moment while we have the trench open and the new pipe is there.
so that would be y'all upgrading the city upgrading?
No,
the-
it's not the city's work. It would be,
Okay.
it would be private contractors. doing
Okay.
it. Yes,
Okay.
the royally, if you will.
It's
Is
a
that
lot of
100%?
No, it's, I believe it's 50%
It's
up
50.
to $2,500 if I'm not mistaken. I believe that was the number off the top of my head.
Right.
It
There was
big
one that
when
was
everything getting
75.
torn up a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a
Everybody was
helpful
getting-
program.
Yeah,
I would say I was at that meeting and the public at the time was curious if we were going to do it again. It was not communicated even to the public works that were there, which wasn't everyone, but that program still exists. So that was my same question is, are we just going with the exact same numbers as however many years ago, or do we have to vote again?
The program has been created by the board and exists.
So how does somebody apply for it?
I will make sure that our public works team has the information to
Okay.
hand out to homeowners, or property owners, but if anybody has a question, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me at citymanager@livingstonmontana.org.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
223-4475.
Okay, thanks.
Is that short term, so it's not pertinent to put it on the website? Like, if people are coming to us to find out, it's not listed there anywhere, so.
We should put the document on the website, but it is really a limited use program that's only open to folks adjacent to ongoing large projects. So I would guess there's probably not more than 80 properties, just knowing the span of this year's project. There's not more than 80 parcels probably that are eligible for the project.
So they can all get like a mailer though? It's possible?
Certainly we can publicize it. We've got a newsletter coming out from the city. But we can also more clearly publicize it in the project meetings. I believe the team, we discussed it several weeks ago, and I believe the team's been talking about it with property owners since then. So.
The property owners I know of, including myself, haven't been talked to.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, please let people know it exists, and
I will, because I have one neighbor, it would help her so much to be able to have some help with that.
and I will say, please know that you're mentioning this is not a conflict of interest, because this is a program that is open to all residents that are, in the affected area.
Oh.
So it
Already
is
existing program.
That's a nuance to me, so I appreciate that.
Way to err on the side of caution.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda for next meeting, possible design and adoption of URA website. Might need help with the verbiage on that, but you had mentioned, maybe a sub-page or something like that.
Microsite.
Microsite, yes, that's the word.
I will second that motion.
Seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
It was a second by Lisa.
Yeah.
I'm saying Melissa.
Lisa.
My bad. All in favor. We don't even need, I don't think we need to vote on it, do we?
Yeah, got
Oh.
a second, you're good to go.
Got it.
Although I would have voted for it. Put it on
Me too. Great.
I have a follow-up question actually from the last URA agenda. Oh, wait, you don't.
Yeah.
So we had talked about, the building at 122 North Main Street and wanting to include everything that could be included. What all did you decide could be included? By you all, I mean, staff. It was gonna be analyzed whether, some of the public facing
Oh, right.
spaces,
Thank you for the refresh. I'm sorry, I was.
that's okay. Because I think it was like, it's an alley facing, but there's like that rear face that faces Ella Park, and then there's the side that faces Park Street.
Yes.
So I meant like the literal park and then Park Street.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the alleyway.
So, we did review the guidelines on that, and I will say that the north and western facing sides of the building meet the criteria for reimbursement. The south and east facing sides do not. The south side, because there is not a pedestrian walkway in the alley that fronts the building.
Okay.
And similar on the east side, while there is a public space, the pedestrian walkway does not front the building. It's not adjacent to the building, and the guidelines actually are very explicit about pedestrian walkways being
Okay.
adjacent to
So
that
it's like-
side. And also, there's no, I didn't mean to cut you off like that, I just was remembering myself. There's no public entry on either of those sides of the building. And so while they are very public facing sides of the building, certainly the east side with a park there, neither is there a walkway that's adjacent to the building, nor is there a public access point there. And so that would,
Does it need either or both?
either or.
But
And
still it's 50% then of the,
You said west
it is.
and
so it's
So
the
north and.
Main
so the
Street side and the
Park
Park Street side.
Yep.
Okay.
So the patio?
Yes, that,
But did we say no to the patio though?
I think we said allowable costs.
Oh, we did say all those? I
Mhm.
can't remember.
and
Okay, cool.
because
We
that,
weren't sure. That
Yeah.
counted.
the north side fronts not only a
do you
pedestrian
think
way,
it's
but
not?
also has a public access, so it's.
I think it was a safety
Passes
concern.
both tests.
So the patio was covered, like whatever the
Yeah.
changes she was making to make it not trippable? Okay. Cool. Thank you for that update. I was curious where that ended up.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to think about what the question was
fine.
there, but yeah.
Yeah.
it's- Yep, south and east are not allowable, north and west are.
Thank you for that.
Actually, just so I understand, the patio, like the bar that she took away, that like step, that we funded that?
So the work
Because
on the
it's a safety.
facade of I should have even
Oh,
more
okay.
clarified, the work on the facade of the north side.
Oh, okay.
But
gotcha.
not the-
But not
Not
the,
the patio.
not
Not the triple wheel part.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I misunderstood that. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
I have no comments, that's all. I was just curious.
I have two comments that are really questions or requests for updates. Brianne Downey, who's meant to be our consultant, I think. I'm just curious about updates on whether or not, given all of the things we just discussed about work tasks and everything else, if we are still able to engage her and how that would work, given the lack of work tasks for the rest of us in between meetings. That's my first question. And then my second is, I know we're in a new fiscal year and I'm just curious, we can have some sort of update about what our budget's gonna be for 2025, 2026.
Absolutely. So I would say actually in light of today's conversation, Brianne's contract is even more useful because some of the items that have been talked about, whether they're a one pager for downtown enhancement grants or even some scoping on the website or work on the website with city staff, those would be totally appropriate items to assign to the contractor.
Okay.
And so I would be happy to agendize a conversation and possible development work tasks for the contractor at the next meeting if it suits the board.
Sure.
Should I motion for that?
I think I heard a yes from two people, so
Oh, great.
Yeah.
You did
if
it
you'd like
yourself.
to make a formal motion, but
I motion to agendize work tasks for our consultant, Brianne Downey, in our August meeting.
Second. And then the second question was about the budget. Is that information part of the master budget?
it is, and I could certainly include some conversation on that in the next meeting as well.
Okay.
It is available on the city website. And it is the very similar amount to what we had last year, which I believe is about 1.3 million maybe.
Okay.
Available to spend in new revenue.
Okay. I'll make a comment. I hope with this new clarity, we can find ways that we can empower ourselves to work better as a board and as a team, because I think I've been feeling a little bit confused for months and not sure what my role needs to look like. So I'm hoping to take forward some clarity and empowerment and use these meetings even more effectively, especially sometimes, I mean, now we're at an hour and a half, but they don't always go an hour and a half, so I agree with what Julie said earlier. It does take a new way of thinking, so I just want to give ourselves grace on that for the next, at least the next couple meetings, but just keep in mind the new handbook and way of doing things. And of course, I think we should all continue asking questions if we're confused. Are we able to ask questions directly to you in between meetings if we're not sure? And then just, yeah, figure out the best way to work together going forward. Any more comments? Nope. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
I.
I guess so. Okay, this meeting is adjourned. I don't know if we have to have all in favor for adjournment. That's actually one of my new.
You just need.
Just need two.
Well, here you need three because there's five.
Three, okay.
So,
5 1/3, okay.
adjourned at 5:59.
Rest of you stay.
Who's ever not adjourned? I'm trying to think.